Good evening, everybody. Tonight's lesson in Principles of Management is Chapter 7, Decision Making, Learning, Creativity, and Entrepreneurship. Pardon the scraggly look. This is my COVID-19 New York City shutdown mode. Stuck in my house, can't get a barber look. So let's move on. Learning objectives understand the nature of managerial decision making, differentiate between programmed and non-programmed decisions, define those, and explain why non-programmed decision making is a complex, uncertain process. Describe the 6 steps that managers should take to make the best decisions, and explain how cognitive biases can lead managers to make poor decisions. Identify the advantages and disadvantages of group decision making and describe techniques that can improve it. Explain the role that organizational learning and creativity play in helping managers to improve their decisions. Describe how managers can encourage and promote entrepreneurship to create a learning organization, and differentiate between entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs and what those mean. The nature of managerial decision making. So decision making is a process by which managers respond to opportunities and threats that confront them by analyzing options and making determinations about specific organizational goals and courses of action. Decisions could be in response to opportunities. This occurs when managers respond to ways to improve organizational performance to benefit customers, employees, and other stakeholder groups. It could also be a decision in response to threats, events inside or outside the organization, or adversely affecting organizational performance. To use this COVID-19 situation that we're in the midst of, it definitely affects many organizations. Our college, Turo College, was impacted. We had to almost overnight move to an online platform. At work, where I work in a cancer clinic, we had to move various departments to be able to work from home and do that in a hurry and give them remote access. So it changed. It moved our focus. Whereas our focus may have been, somewhere else. And, I know I was working on several projects that had to be dumped in the midst and basically move all my resources and all my brain power to think about how we're going to get through this. Sometimes it's a response to a threat. Hopefully, most of the time, it's a response to opportunity. You don't want to do crisis management. Obviously, in the case of COVID-19, we really didn't see it coming. Whether we should have, shouldn't have, really is beyond the scope of this video. But in any case, there are going to be situations that are just out of your control. But you have to do your best to try to plan for as many eventualities as you can humanly possibly anticipate. What is a program decision? Routine, virtually automatic decision-making that follows established rules or guidelines. Decisions have been made so many times in the past that managers have developed rules or guidelines to be applied when certain situations inevitably occur. Certain situations like procurement, you know your basic procurement procedures, what threshold you're allowed to spend till without getting approvals, where you can get your stuff from. So it's programmed. It's like going to the store and getting milk. You don't think about what brand you're going to get. You like skim milk, red milk, blue milk, whatever it is that you like, you get it. It's programmed. You don't have to put much thought into it. A non-programmed decision is a non-routine decision-making process that occurs in response to unusual, unpredictable opportunities and threats. And using, again, the COVID-19 example, we are doing things that are very, very unconventional, speeding up treatments for this disease that would take years in the FDA, mobilizing federal and state institutions, enacting certain capabilities for organizations such as Ford and Chrysler and other organizations, making ventilators instead of automobiles. This is something that we haven't seen since World War II. So this is something very, very scary, but exciting in that we see that, the machine that we call government working in sync and getting things done, which is amazing. Thank God for that. Rules do not exist because the situation is unexpected or uncertain, and managers lack the information they would need to develop rules to cover it. Intuition, feelings, beliefs, and hunches that come readily to mind require little effort and information gathering and result in on-the-spot decisions. Gut feeling. Reasoned judgment, decision that requires time and effort and results from careful information gathering, generation of alternatives, and evaluation of those alternatives. The classical model, and this is really not practical, but it's definitely something that can work if the situation is right. It's a prescriptive approach to making decisions based on the assumption that the decision maker can identify and evaluate all possible alternatives and their consequences and rationally choose the most appropriate course of action. Highly unlikely in our current world, more likely in a very, very old school, ancient civilization where things are pretty much predictable. Definitely not applicable in today's day and age. Optimum decision, the most appropriate decision in light of what managers believe to be most desirable consequences for their organization. Again, using the COVID-19 example, we don't know enough about the disease and how to manage it because it's the first time we've been through such a thing. So therefore, what will be decided now may or may not be used in future outbreaks and future situations, but what we do now is the most appropriate based on the information that we have in front of us. Figure 7.1 discusses the classical model of decision making and its assumptions. You may look at it on your own, and you could also jump to Appendix 1 for a description. We could look at that right now. Basically, the classical model, as we mentioned, lists all the alternative courses of action possible and the consequences, assumes all information about alternatives is available to managers, which is something that really could be only assumed in a very, very basic society. Rank each alternative from least preferred to most. Assume that managers possess the mental facility to process this information. And again, today's day and age, all the stuff that's going on now simultaneously, it's very difficult to make an assumption like that. And then select the alternative that leads to desired future consequences. Assumes managers know what future courses of action is the best for the organization. And with what's going on today, that's next to impossible. Again, you go to the bottom of the slide and you jump back to slide 11. Which we were at. Now we go to slide 12, the administrative model, which is an approach to decision-making that explains why decision-making is inherently uncertain and risky and why managers usually make satisfactory rather than optimum decisions. Bounded rationality, cognitive limitations that constrain one's ability to interpret, process, and act on information. Incomplete information because of risk and uncertainty, ambiguity, and time constraints. That's why we don't always make the best decisions and have to sometimes make decisions on the fly. Figure 7.2, again, discusses why information is incomplete, which is what we just said in the past two slides. Causes of incomplete information. Risk, the degree of probability that the possible outcomes of a particular course of action will occur. We're not sure. Again, using COVID-19, we're not sure when it's going to peak in New York City. We're not sure when it's going to peak worldwide. Will it peak in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 8 weeks? And when it does, how much time will it take till it starts going down? Uncertainty. Again, the probabilities of alternative outcomes cannot be determined and future outcomes are unknown. Like right now, the president is unsure. He wants to open up business after Passover, Easter break. That may or may not be a reality. We're uncertain about that. We don't know how well this current quarantine that we're in is going to work. Ambiguous information. The next slide, you see a picture of a young and old woman. And again, it depends how you look at it. Information that can be interpreted in multiple ways. If you look at one angle, you see the old woman, you see her haggard chin, her thin lips, her nose in need of a nose job. I'm sorry if I offended anybody. But then if you look at it the other way, it's a picture of a young brunette who's obviously being obnoxious and turning her face away. Maybe she's being shy, I'm not sure. And you can see her eyelid, her tiny nose, and of course the contours of her chin. And again, it all depends on how you look at it. Next slide. Time constraints and information costs. No time nor money to search for all possible alternatives and evaluate potential consequences. Satisficing, it's kind of like doing the best that you can, but it's not really. Searching for and choosing an acceptable or satisfactory response to problems and opportunities rather than trying to make the best decision, which is really not good. Figure 7.4 looks at the 6 steps in decision making. Let's just jump to the appendix. So the six steps are recognizing the need for a decision, generate the alternatives, evaluate those alternatives, choose among the alternatives, implement chosen alternative, and of course, learn from feedback. We go back to the slide, which was slide 18, and we can see that there. And now we move to slide 19. Figure 7.5, general criteria for evaluation of possible courses of action. Is it legal? Is it ethical? Let me just redefine the difference or put the difference down real simple. Legal means that you are within the confines of the guidelines of what the law is. I'm driving 55 when it says to drive 55. I give the right of way. That doesn't mean that I'm a nice guy. That doesn't mean that I'm going above and beyond. Ethical means that you are going above and beyond. If I follow the law, that doesn't make me ethical. Ethical means that I'm always looking to see what's best for society. I'm always looking to see what's best for my fellow man or woman. Of course, you have to look at the economical implications, and of course, is it practical for you? So the feedback procedure, let's move on to that aspect of decision making. Compare what actually happened to what was expected to happen as a result of the decision. Explore why an expectation for the decision were not met, and derive guidelines that will help in future decision making. Heuristics, cognitive biases in decision making, which is rules of thumb that simplify the process of making decisions. Systematic errors that people make over and over and that result in poor decision making. Prior hypothesis biases, a cognitive bias resulting from the tendency to base decisions on strong prior beliefs, even if evidence shows that those beliefs are wrong. Representativeness, a cognitive bias resulting from the tendency to generalize inappropriately from a small sample or from a single vivid event or episode. Illusions of control, the tendency to overestimate one's own ability to control activities and events. Escalating commitment, a source of cognitive bias resulting from the tendency to commit additional resources to a project even if evidence shows that the project is failing. It's kind of like a money pit. You keep on putting more resources, even though you've seen them failing, and it's kind of a tendency of people. They keep on pushing and pushing and pushing even though it's a failure. Group decision making, superior to individual decision making. Choices less likely to fall victim to bias, able to draw on combined skills of group members. Improve ability to generate feasible alternatives. Potential advantages of group decision making: can take much longer for groups than individual to make decisions. Can be difficult. These are disadvantages. Again, it can take longer for groups than individuals to make decisions. Can be difficult to get 2 or more managers to agree because of different interests and preferences. Each one could be vying for resources, vying for that promotion. So of course they're going to be looking out for themselves and their departments. Can be undermined by biases. Groupthink, pattern of faulty and biased decision making that occurs in groups whose members strive for agreement among themselves at the expense of accurately assessing information relevant to a decision. Devil's advocacy, we're going to jump, that's figure 7.7, we're going to jump to appendix 3. So devil's advocacy, we present chosen alternative, critique chosen alternative, and reassess chosen alternative. We either accept, modify, or reject it. Dialectical inquiry, present alternative number 1 and alternative number 2, debate between the alternatives, reassess the alternatives, accept number 1 or 2, or combine number 1 and 2. We now jump back to slide 27, which we were at. Much clearer. I like the way that these slides are set up with the ability to jump to a verbal explanation of the figures. Some people like myself don't like these figures because they try to make things that should be easy more difficult. So I like that. So when you're reviewing this on your own, you should look at the jump to the appendix, little blue area underneath the slide there, which you can click on. Organizational learning and creativity. Organizational learning, managers seek to improve an employee's desire and ability to understand and manage the organization and its task environment. Learning organization, an organization in which managers try to maximize the ability of individuals and groups to think and behave creatively and thus maximize the potential for organizational learning to take place. Creativity, a decision maker's ability to discover original and novel ideas that lead to feasible alternative courses of action. Figure 7.8, Senge's principles for creating and learning organization. Let's jump to the appendix. Senge's principles for creating and learning organization. Number 1, develop personal mastery, build complex, challenging mental models, promote team learning. Again, get the team involved, building a shared vision, getting consensus, and encourage systems thinking, not just thinking about your little small area, but how your actions or your behaviors will affect the entire system. We move back to slide 30, which is what figure 7.8 was. And now we move to slide 31. Brainstorming, promoting group creativity. Managers meet face-to-face to generate and debate many alternatives. Production blocking, there might be a loss of productivity in brainstorming sessions due to the unstructured nature of brainstorming. Nominal group technique, a decision-making technique in which group members write down ideas and solutions, read their suggestions to the whole group, and discuss and then rank the alternatives. It's useful when an issue is controversial and different managers might be expected to champion different courses of action. Delphi technique, a decision-making technique in which group members do not meet face-to-face but respond in writing to questions posed by the group leader. Entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship, An individual who notices opportunities and decides how to mobilize the resources necessary to produce new and improved goods and services. Social entrepreneur is an individual who pursues initiatives and opportunities and mobilizes resources to address social problems and needs in order to improve society and well-being through creative solutions. An example of that would be, well, actually, this is an already extant organization, but the way that they're looking at it is definitely a social entrepreneurship kind of bend. That is Fanatics. They make sports memorabilia, they make jerseys, and in light of the shortages of masks and gowns, they're actually cutting up their jerseys to create masks for healthcare workers and gowns out of jerseys. So you may see that if, God forbid, somebody is hospitalized, don't be surprised if you see somebody with a striped gown that looks like a Yankees uniform or a Phillies uniform. That's done on purpose. Or if you see that being sold online, it's not by accident. And that's a social entrepreneur looking out for the betterment of society. And again, I hope everyone stays healthy and everyone's loved ones stay healthy. Entrepreneur is a manager, scientist, or researcher who works inside an organization and notices opportunities to develop new or improved products and better ways to make them. Characteristics of an entrepreneur: open to experience, they're original thinkers and take risks, internal locus of control that take responsibility for what happens, the buck stops with them, high self-esteem, they feel competent and capable, and of course that helps them do a great job, and high need for achievement. They really, really need to achieve. They thrive on that. They set high goals and enjoy working toward them. Entrepreneurship and management: frequently a founding entrepreneur lacks the skills, patience, and experience to engage in the difficult and challenging work of management, so that's why they hire people to help them. Product champion: entrepreneurship and organizational learning. Product champion: a manager who takes ownership of a project and provides the leadership and vision that take a product from an idea stage to the final customer. Skunkworks: a group of entrepreneurs who are deliberately separated from the normal operation of an organization to encourage them to devote all their attention to developing new products. This definitely is happening right now in drug companies, where the best scientists are being sequestered, so to speak, set aside to work on a coronavirus vaccine. Okay, you could look at examples: Xerox PARC, which is a research and development division. Many innovations such as the laser printer, personal workstation, WYSI, printing, and GUI came out of PARC. And you can click on the blue link, which of course will take you to an interesting area and show you all about it. It'll take you right to the website, which is great, and you can learn more about it at your leisure. Okay, we move on to the next slide. Video discussions. You can click on that and see a video. And the rest of the PowerPoint slides are the actual appendices that we looked at throughout our presentation. I encourage you to look at the videos because they're interesting and will give you some more dimension. Thank you very much. Stay safe, stay healthy, and be well. Good night.